Tell them you're going to talk about hell and they just stay home, right? Or even better than that, your song leader gets up and sings, "Sing to me of heaven, no tears in heaven, and to Canaan's land I'm on my way." And for those of you that don't know, I assigned the song, so we're all good here, okay? I mean, get up and sing about heaven since you don't want to hear about hell, right? You got your Bible tonight? Let's go to the 21st chapter of the book of Luke, and let's start where we ended this morning. Very briefly, as we were closing, I was mentioning to you the importance of watching for signs that could occur in your spiritual life that could cause you to be on a path that ends up in a place you don't want to end up. And tonight we want to talk about that place that's called hell. It is a real place, and it is really bad for those who don't listen to the signs in life. Did you hear how the chapter ends in Luke 21? I mentioned it in verse 34. "But watch yourselves, lest your hearts be weighed down with dissipation and drunkenness and cares of this life." In other words, you've got to pay attention to how you're living and how you're behaving and how you're walking, and don't let yourself get overcome with the things in this world that are bound to burden you, because the day is coming suddenly like a trap. And we read those words and we think, man, so God's just, some people's got this image of God that God's just out to get us. No, God ain't out to get nobody. As a matter of fact, the Old Testament prophet Ezekiel makes it very clear that the Lord has no pleasure in the death of the wicked. None. He doesn't have any pleasure in God's not out to trap us in the sense of, hey, I'm going to catch you at your weakest moment, and then that's when it's going to happen to you. That's when you're going to breathe your last, or that's when the world's going to come to an end, if that were to be the case. That's not the God we serve. We read terminology like that, and if we're not careful, we lose the urgency. We lose the urgency. I had a lady come into my office just this past Thursday. Visited with her for about an hour. She's living in sin. She knows she's living in sin, and she knows she needs to get out of sin. It's pretty clear. It's pretty obvious. The conversation ends like this. I've got one of two choices. Either I do what's right, and I get right, or I pray for God to be patient with me till I can get right. To which I'm thinking, how many other people are in those same shoes? We lose our urgency, don't we? Well, I got other things that I need to take care of, she told me. I got other things that I need to see through. I've got other things that I need to give my attention to, even though I know that my salvation ought to be atop my list. And then she looks at me and she says, and I will forevermore remember these words. She looked at me and she said, "Do you realize I'm less than 50 years old?" So when did 50 become the magic number, right? So you do what you want to till you're 50, and then after you're 50, you try to get right? I don't know. I don't know what that statement meant, but I can still see her eyes looking at me and saying it. I'm not yet 50. To which I responded, and nobody says that you'll get there. I don't know what it is, but there's something about this life that it causes us to get, I don't know if it's complacent, I don't know if it's comfortable, I don't know if we're living longer, and so now we think everybody lives longer. I mean, it's factual that the lifespan of man is longer. Yes, that's a fact. That's a medical fact. And women live longer than men. That's a medical fact on average. But that doesn't mean that just because the average age of a man is 78.7, that I'm going to make it to 38.7, right? I may be one of the ones that brings the average down, and you may be one over 78 that's bringing the average up at this point. What I'm trying to make is that if we could view all of life, I'm not saying we need to view God this way, I'm saying we need to view life this way, that life is one big trap. Life is one big trap waiting to catch us. And every situation, every circumstance, every reality, every decision in life, we're constantly reminding ourselves that I need to be watchful because Satan is setting a trap. Life is setting a trap. The evil one is setting a trap, whatever terminology you want to use, trying to get me. Because the Bible makes it very clear that Satan has a place that was prepared for him and his angels. And the Bible makes it very clear that to those on the left, God is going to say, depart from me. And then what does that look like? What does that look like? Well, I would love to just sing a bunch of songs about heaven, wouldn't you? That'd be great. Heaven songs are fun, right? And oh, by the way, if you hadn't looked lately, you ain't got no hell songs in your book. I don't know if you've looked lately, but I tried to find some, Roger. I want to give you a hard task here. There's not any, okay? But there's a bunch of heaven songs. And I get it. We want to focus more on heaven than we do hell. And I'm there. I'm right there with you. But I don't think we're doing ourselves any favor by glamorizing hell in any way, or by ignoring it to the point that we don't create and keep within us a sense of urgency. As the lady left my office Thursday, she said, I may die on the way home. Yes, ma'am, you may. She didn't, and to my knowledge she hasn't yet, but that time's coming. Revelation 14, you ready? Let's go. As quick as I know how, as ugly as I can make it, here it is. In Revelation 14, it's not the place you want to go. There's 144,000 in the book of Revelation, according to Revelation 14 and verse 3, and they've been redeemed from the earth. I almost said that's a good number. I don't think there's anything significant about the number. Don't take it that way. That is a good number to be among, is what I'm trying to say, okay? That's the ones you want to be numbered with. I don't think there's anything significant about 144,000, but that's who you want to be with. Verse 4, these have been redeemed from mankind as first fruits for God and the Lamb. That's the ones we're after. That's the ones we want to be a part of. But then these three angels come in here in Revelation 14. Angel number 1 says in verse 7, fear God and give him glory, because the hour of his judgment has come. Now, obviously, there's a lot of symbolism in here, and there's a lot of background to Revelation 14 that would help us, surely, in a deeper study. But just for tonight's sake, understand this first angel warns about an hour of judgment. A time of judgment, a time of reckoning, a time of accountability, a time of bringing all deeds before God. The second angel, verse 8, comes out crying, fallen, fallen. It is a message of doom and gloom. It is a message of wickedness. It is a message of unrighteousness because of the things that she has done, namely drinking the wine of passion and sexual immorality there. Verse 9, the third angel, and here we go. The third angel begins and comes down here to those who have worshiped the beast and the image and received the mark of the beast. He will also, that one, will also drink of God's wrath. Poured full strength into the cup of his anger, and he will be tormented. How are you going to describe the place of hell? How are you going to put an image into people's minds that says, this is the end of the wicked, and you don't want to be in that number. You want to be in the 144, not literal, 1,000 that are redeemed from the earth. You want to be among the redeemed when the hour of judgment comes. For if you're not, the first thing you're going to have to suffer is torment, torture. I could think about a whole lot of scenarios, you know, and we could make this very glamorized, and we could soft coat this and sugar coat it and water it down. I can think about things that torment us in life, and I can say, your greatest torment will be there in hell. I don't know that for certainty. But if you've got something that torments you, something that just makes your life miserable and unhappy and unpleasant, it'll be there. I don't know if that's true or not. What I do know will be there is torment. As I think about where our questions come from tonight in Luke 16, you remember the rich man. He lifted up his eyes being in torment. He was tormented. He was unhappy, unpleasant, unjoyful, miserable, however you want to describe that. Think of your worst day in life. Think of all the things that happened on that day. Now multiply them times 10. I don't know what the equation is. The point I'm trying to make is that I don't fully understand what all this torment is going to be like. But the third angel says that those who are among the fallen, according to the second angel, who have worshiped the beast, are going to receive a mark, and they are going to have to endure the wrath of God, among which will be torment. Secondly, they're going to have to endure fire and sulfur. Now, this one's kind of hard too. You know why? Because we glamorize fire, don't we? We make fire out to be, after all, yesterday I was down at Arliss standing by a fire. It was very pleasant. It was cold outside and the wind was blowing and it just felt really good. And the more sticks they put on that fire, the better it felt, right? You've been there, you understand that. And so in our minds, when we hear the word fire, here's the problem. I had control over that fire, didn't I? I could turn that fire up. I could turn it down, meaning I could step away or I could get closer. I had the power. That fire didn't have any power. It didn't have any control over me. I had the control, and I've never been at a fire where I didn't have the control. Some of you have. And it's very torturing, isn't it? If you've watched your personal belongings go up in fire, that is a tormenting experience. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. I know some folks who have experienced that. I never have. To stand back and to be out of control. You see, when we think about fire being a good thing, it's because we're in control. We set it. We lit it. We put the wood on it. We can take it off. We've got a bucket of water. We've got the water hose. We're in control. And if we get out of control, there's this little building right down here where they've got bigger water hoses, right? And we want them to get in control, right? But the point is we always feel like we're in control, with the one exception. And if you've ever experienced that, maybe you need to tell somebody else what that feels like. Because in my mind, that's what hell's going to be like. It's going to be a fire that you don't have no control over. You can't turn it up or turn it down. You can't put it out. It's going to be a very unenjoyable experience, one that I can only imagine of losing your home and all of your possessions in a fire, one that would not be very pleasant. A third thing he mentions here in verse 11 is the smoke. I'm allergic to smoke. I hate smoke. I don't mind telling you. It seems like every campfire I go to, guess where the smoke comes? That's not enjoyable, is it? Arliss, I left yesterday and I smelled like smoke the rest of the day. My clothes smelled like, you know how it is, your hair, your clothes. Smoke has just got a smell to it, doesn't it? It's not an enjoyable one. I took those clothes off last night and guess what I smelled? Smoke. Can you imagine that? Forever. For all eternity. Even backing away, if you will, from the fire and yet being polluted, being odored by the smoke. a place of smoke, in the torment that goes up forever and ever. And then number 4, a place of no rest. A place of no rest. A place where there is no peace, there is no comfort, there is no relief. You know, it's nice sometimes just to kick back and rest, isn't it? It's nice just to have periods of not doing anything. Now, if you do that all day, every day, that's called laziness. But it's kind of nice to do it every now and then, isn't it? We need rest. We need to be rejuvenated. Our bodies need that time to unplug. And we understand that physically, but think about being in a place spiritually. There is never any, you cannot get comfortable. You had those nights where something's bothering you and you toss and you turn and you wake up what feels like every 5 minutes and you're kind of feeling like Paxton's still in our bed occasionally, and one night recently he rolls over and he says, "Daddy, will it ever get daylight outside?" You ever have those nights? It just feels like the night will never end. You don't feel well. You're not sleeping well. You got something on your mind that you can't get off. I just think about how miserable that is. And yet, when it comes to hell, there will be no rest. There will be no peace. There will be no comfort. Again, I really struggle with trying to make parallels here because, you know, at the end of the night, guess what? The daylight does come, doesn't it? And you get to get up from that night. And if you survive that day, you get to try it again the next night. There won't be that way in hell. There won't be no looking at the window for the daylight to come in as if to wish it to end. There won't be no end. It'll be a place of no rest. Oh, there are many other passages. We could go back to Matthew 25, couldn't we? You remember Matthew 25? And Jesus brought all the nations there together and he divided those. You know, that's where we often quote the right and the left, the sheep and the goats and all that in Matthew 25. And when I was in prison, you visited me, and when I was sick, you visited me, and when I needed clothing, you brought me, and all of that's in Matthew 25, and when you'd done it unto the least of these, you did it unto me, and all of that, and then the other ones will say, you know, he'll say, you didn't do that, and all that's at the end of Matthew 25. You remember how the first part of Matthew 25 ends? It was about those 3 guys that had been given talents. You remember the 1 talent man? Verse 30. And he cast the worthless servant, that is the 1 talent man, into the outer darkness. In that place where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Into the outside of darkness. In a place where there is weeping. I don't enjoy weeping. Do you? I think it's needed and I think it's helpful. I really do. I think there are times for weeping. But I don't just get up every morning going, man, I hope I get to weep today. I just don't live like that. Maybe you do. But I understand there are moments and there are times and I am capable of crying, and the older I get, seems like the more I do cry from time to time. But the reality of it is that I don't want to live like that. I don't want that to be every day. I don't want that to be constant around me. And yet I think about hell, a place where there is weeping. If for no other reason, look at all the things you're having to endure from Revelation 14. Why wouldn't you weep? You would obviously be weeping, knowing what you missed out on and where you are. And why would you want to do that forever? Why would you want to live in a place of outer darkness? And I understand How do you get dark and fire in the same place? I don't know, and I don't want to find out. All right? That's a question I just soon not have the experience to answer. I don't know how you can get darkness and fire in the same place, and I really don't care, because everywhere I've ever been, you can't, and that's how I answer it. And everywhere I plan to go, you can't, and you won't be able to. If you want to find out the answer to your question, you just continue down the path of wickedness, and that's what you'll find out. You'll be able to answer it. I don't think you'll want to answer it, but you'll be able to answer the question. It says there that he cast the one-talent man into outer darkness. NIV says outside in the darkness. The idea is to be cast out, and where you end up is dark. In Daniel chapter 12, I don't know if you've ever noticed this one or not, and I hadn't until this week. In Daniel chapter 12, going back in the Old Testament, in verse 1, at that time shall arise Michael, the great prince. Now, this is the last chapter of the book of Daniel, in case you don't know. The 7th chapter through the 12th chapter are very apocryphal language. I want to teach the Bible the way it's supposed to. I want you to understand the context in which we're in. It's a lot like Revelation. It's very symbolic. It's a lot of imagery, a lot of things. You have to be very careful taking it taking it literal. You be safer to take it figurative. And so we're in that section of Scripture. There's really only a few sections like that. But in this 12th chapter, just think about what he says here. The great prince who has charge of your people, there will be a time of trouble such as never has been since there was a nation till that time. But that time your people will be delivered. Everyone whose name shall be found written in the book. Now, there's your 144,000, right? Figuratively. There's your redeemed of the earth, right? There's the people that are going to go to heaven. Those that are written in the book. But then notice verse 2. And many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life. That's them, right? That's the ones you want. But then some to shame and everlasting contempt. When I read that, I thought, so hell has got an element of shame, disgrace, reproach to it. An abhorrence, some translations say. And I got to thinking about that, and I thought, it really would be shameful to die lost. It really would be a shame for God to do all that he's done, for you and I not to care enough to do our best to go to heaven. It really would be disgraceful. I'm not so sure that that's like part of the makeup of hell, but I am convinced that's part of the attitude of the people in hell. Very shameful, very disgraceful, very reproaching to know that I didn't do what I should have done. Those that are coming from the dust of the earth to an everlasting life, but then there'll be some who come from the dust of the earth to shame and everlasting contempt. Place of shame. I'll give you one more. Now I'm going to let you out early since my wife ain't here. Don't tell her. I'll give you one more. I can give you half a dozen more. This is it for me. This is the breaker for me. It's in 2 Thessalonians 1. I don't like darkness. You know that. If somebody were to ask you, What's Rodney's greatest fear about hell? You'd probably say darkness. He don't like darkness. That would be a fair answer because it is accurate that I don't like darkness. I'm not a fan at all of smoke, actually allergic to it. But this one is it for me. It's not those. Because here's what I know. I know that if you put me in darkness, if you'll give me a few minutes, my eyes will adjust to a point that I can see some. I do know that. It torments me the time they're adjusting, but I do know that can happen. If smoke is bad enough, I can, back away and get away from it. I'm not going to subject myself to it on purpose just to be there in it. I can kind of get out of it. I don't like it. But this one's it for me. In 2 Thessalonians 1, and what Jeremy read a moment ago, it's about the Lord coming, verse 7, with his mighty angels. And it's about vengeance, verse 8, on those. It's about taking wrath upon those who are wicked, who do not know God, and who do not obey the gospel. They will, verse 9, make no mistake about it, they will suffer. They will suffer punishment of eternal destruction. That's what Matthew 25 and verse 46 says. To those on the right, they're going off into everlasting life. To those on the left, they're going off into everlasting punishment. And the same word is used. In other words, hell is going to last just as long as heaven is. They're going to last the same amount of time. And one's just as real as the other. 2 Thessalonians 1 and verse 9 says, the punishment of eternal destruction. And I'll admit to you tonight that I don't understand what eternity is. You realize we measure everything by time? Somebody were to ask you, how far is Lawrenceburg? Very few people in this room would say 5 miles. You'd say, it's about 5 to 7 minutes. Right? That's time. Somebody were to ask you, what does it take to cook a frozen pizza? You'd say, about 25 minutes in the oven. That's time. Somebody were to ask you, how long you've been living? Some of you really need to say, you know what? I haven't lived a day in my life. It's time I start living. But you wouldn't say that. No, you'd say, I'm 35 years old. I kind of like what the funeral homes are doing now. It's kind of neat for me. It's 35 years. I didn't do this for myself. I don't know how many months and days I'm removed from my birthday. But that's kind of cool for me. 35 years, 8 months, and, 291 days. You get the idea, okay? I don't know if that's accurate. But the months and the days, we've started, it's not enough anymore to say, well, this person died at age 80. Now we've got to get the months and the days. You know what's coming next? Are you ready, young people? On your obituary, 80 years from now, 90 for some of you, it's going to say the hours and the minutes. I'm looking forward to that. They're going to die at age 87, 4 months, 3 days, 4 hours, and 13 minutes and 58 seconds. Because we measure everything in time. Everything is measured in time. And do you realize there's no time element to eternity at all? There's no time. Well, how long did that take you? It's time. Well, how long will that take you? It's time. Well, how much will you charge? Let me see how much time. It's all about time. And yet, in 2 Thessalonians 1 and verse 9, the punishment of eternal destruction, there is no time element here. Away from the presence of the Lord. There it is for me. That's it. I don't want to go to hell. I don't want to go to hell. Let me tell you why I don't want to go to hell. Because my God is not in hell. I can't even feel the presence, much less be in the presence of God in hell. I don't want to go there. I don't like separation. There's nothing that bothers me more, believe it or not. Not even darkness. I'll go home to a dark house tonight if it's the Lord's will. But you know what will be harder in that house than the darkness that's in it? There's some people missing. That's separation. I don't like separation. I don't like it. If I don't like it, then why would I subject myself to it permanently from somebody much greater than my wife and my children? The God of heaven. You see, for me, it's not torment. I'm a tough guy. I can handle stuff. It's not fire. Because I don't understand what it is to be out of control in fire. It's not smoke. Because I can get away from that. I can wash those clothes. They won't smell like smoke no more. For me, it's not even darkness. Even though it's outer darkness. Sometimes I like to have a pity party. I might just cry and cry and cry and cry. I can handle that. Sometimes I enjoy pity parties. Now, that's not it for me. Let me tell you what it is for me. It's the shame of knowing I didn't do what God asked me to do. And I ought to feel that shame every day when I don't behave like God asked me to behave. And if I do, I won't have to be worried about living in shame in eternity, because I'll get it right now, here in this life. Because the last thing I want is to be separated from God. And I don't want you separated from God. Oh, why not tonight? Huh? Oh, why not tonight? Lord, would you just come back tonight? Maybe we ought to rewrite that song, you think? Oh, why not tonight? Let's just end this thing. You want to? I don't know. Do you? It could. Do you want it to? If not, you better ask yourself why. If you need to come, we invite you to come as we stand and sing.
Oh, do not let and close thine eyes against the light. Poor sinner, harden not thy heart. Be saved, oh, tonight. Oh, why not tonight? Oh, why not tonight? Wilt thou be saved? Then why not tonight? Tomorrow's sun may never rise to bless thy long deluded sight. This is the time, oh then be wise, be saved, oh tonight. Oh, why not tonight? Oh, why not tonight? Wilt thou be saved? Then why not tonight? Our God in pity lingers still, and wilt thou thus his love requite? Renounce at once thy stubborn will, be saved, oh, tonight. Oh, why not tonight? Oh, why not tonight? Wilt thou be saved? Then why blessed Lord refuses none who would to him their souls unite. Believe, obey, the work is done. Be saved, oh, tonight. Oh, why not tonight? Oh, why not tonight? Wilt thou be saved? Then why not tonight? Visitation Group 4 will be meeting in room 6 tonight, and also if there's anyone here that hasn't had the opportunity to take the Lord's Supper, it's prepared in the back classroom. You can get to through either of these exit doors in the back behind, and you can go there as we sing our closing song, but we'll have a prayer before.
Our Heavenly Father, thank you for the blessing of being able to come here today to sing songs of praise unto Thee, to worship Thee in spirit and in truth. Father, we pray